Okay, so we are starting this episode with a little icebreaker. Everyone has to answer. That's the rule. The question is, what is the number one old person thing that you do?
As a 25-year-old human being, I shouldn't be looking forward to this as much as I am, but I am really looking forward to my A&W morning coffee dates with all my boys.
A&W, eh?
100%. It's not even a question. Like I can't wait to meet my boys and gossip about God knows what. Good shit.
You're just going to be chatting about putting in fence posts and laying some stones in your driveway.
Mowing the lawn.
Mowing the lawn.
I don't know if this is an old person thing specifically, but I drive like really close to the
Oh.
steering wheel.
Oh
I'm one
my
of these
God.
drivers. And it's
Oh,
I feel like I only see old people driving.
yeah.
But
I get in the car after she drove, and I'm like, how do you have any room between?
literally like
Yeah.
at all times.
That's a good one. You're just trying to make sure you can see the road. I get you on that.
Got little legs over here.
Yeah. I need some books to sit on so that you can see. I don't know. Like, I wear slippers all the time, all the time inside. Like, my feet are never bare because my feet get so cold. Is that an old person thing?
The extremity situation.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I don't have like a standout one, but I know
I know you're an old man, so
like I feel like I've changed so much. Like waking up early now.
Yeah.
Liking to be awake before Slater's awake and before Keisha's awake, so I can have my coffee and watch some hockey highlights or something.
In peace.
Like I noticed myself, like we're kind of out in the country and we're driving through the country, and I'm like, wow, look at the leaves are changing. You know, some rolling hills and
Hey, Keish, would you look out the window there?
yeah.
You literally said to me the other day, my new ideal meal is breakfast at the diner.
Yeah.
Good thing we moved out of Chicago and nightlife.
Are you ordering the same
What's
meal?
your order?
I do. I mean, it's pretty consistent. I think maybe I've mixed up a couple things here and there, but yeah, just like 3 eggs, bacon or sausage, rye toast, home fries.
It's essentially a meal he could make at home most times, but he like loves the experience of like
Yeah.
a normal.
Maybe you guys can meet in the middle and go to the diner.
Yeah, we can go for a nice breakfast.
Well, Ty, I was gonna say, I don't know what the parameters are to get into this club, but at this diner, I think every Thursday morning the Corvette Club meets up. It was like a squad of like 12 guys, and we were like, whoa, that looks cool. And they're all just
They had those old school like vintage
Bro.
Corvette jackets.
That is an elite club.
yeah.
That is something I want to be a part of one day. It's something that I'm striving for every single day, honestly.
You know what though? I like, in all honesty, I feel like that's a really valid and awesome goal because that means you have a lot of friends and that means you have a consistent time where you meet up with them. And a lot of adults don't have that.
Yeah.
So
Props.
we're already getting into like mental health. Like that will be very good for your mental health as you age. Kind of.
Connections,
So,
yeah,
very
it's
good.
important.
Yeah.
All right, let's
So-
get into it.
Growing off of that, we are super excited, and people are probably like, who is this chick and why is she here? I am Keisha. I'm Riley's wife, and we are super excited to have the winners of the Amazing Race Canada on with us today. Team TyKat. We are doing like a very specific episode where we wanted to not only pump their tires because Riley and I watched the season start to finish and we were just like in awe of a lot of things, but mostly just the bond that these two have and how instrumental that was in the victory. And we want to like talk about that a little bit more. But we're just so pumped to dive into this with you guys.
Well, welcome back to Canada, first off. And thank you for christening yourselves back into Canada by watching the most Canadian show, Amazing Race.
I really felt like I was getting a lot of geographical information that I didn't have, so that was really nice.
And shout out to St. Catharines being a stop.
Yeah.
Seriously.
You were right in our backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys were like right by the winery that we had our wedding.
Crazy.
It was stunning.
It
Yeah.
was.
But also, what a journey. I don't really know even how to like put it into words, but it's wow, learned a lot to say the least.
Yeah.
I think a good way to start would be like before the race even starts. Like, what is your approach to like getting ready? What were your expectations going into it? Was it kind of just blind, or like the routine of things and like kind of the day to day? What were your expectations when it came to all of that?
Mm-hmm.
Probably prepared a little bit more than you did. Like, I like to be prepared for things. But that said, like, you can't really prepare. So I was like watching the seasons, trying to like break it down rather than watch it as a viewer. And I actually been laid off like a month to the day that we were leaving to go. So I had this like month to kind of like focus on getting myself in the best shape, learning random things. Like, I learned how to tie knots and like tried to brush up on my like elementary school math and like just random things like that you would notice there were challenges. So I think I tried to prepare as much as we could.
I mean, there is some element of preparation to it, but it's also, I mean, the coolest part of it is you really have no idea how it's going to look. And like waking up some days, it's just like, all right, like we could be flying across Canada right now. We could be, staying in our location, like whatever it was. Like, it's just, I think that element of you have no idea what's next is like so hard to prepare for. And as soon as you kind of have this vision of how things are going to go and it doesn't go that way, then I think that's when things start to spiral. Our first goal was honestly just to make it through the first episode. And luckily that went good. And I mean, it was nice to be able to do the first episode in Calgary and Winnipeg. But wow, it was just like, even I think to myself, I should have ran on a treadmill with a backpack. Because like once you're actually running with a backpack, it's like, holy shit, like this is something that you should prepare for.
They obviously can't show
Right. They're not showing you
like the full run.
Yeah.
So like give us an idea of like how long some of those actually are.
Well, I mean, some of the runs, I mean, the one run we did, I think this wasn't the one in, where were we? Victoria and Soup, when we did like the Malahat Skywalk. Like that one didn't have our backpacks on it, but like honestly, I mean, with climbing that skywalk and then the actual like walkway, I mean, it had to have been like a couple kilometers at least, like fresh in the morning, and then like with like all the backpack runs and yeah. I mean, the backpack was the death of us.
Our backpacks were so full at the start, and then as we were going, it was like so heavy that like every city we stopped in, we'd like leave something in the hotel to donate because we're like, we just need to get rid of anything in our backpack. Yeah. It was so heavy that first leg.
I was just a shedding dog, and I was just like letting stuff loose, like as much as I could.
Well, you didn't take the backpack. The one it was like close to the end, right, where you forgot or you didn't forget, but you left your backpacks, and then you ended up needing them, or you needing your ID. So it's kind of like, I don't know, you got to weigh your options there.
And then it was ironic that like backpack was the last word we needed on the crossword.
Yes, that was like very interesting. The producers probably love that. They're like, "Oh, this aligned perfectly." No, I felt for you guys too, and the market you were in Toronto too, because it was like so hot in the freaking backpack. I was like, can Kat just drop that there and tie it and come back and get it? Like, it's not necessary. Like I said, I couldn't breathe. So.
It was a rough day overall. We were gassed.
Yeah, I think that day was just like a culmination of so many things. Like just like starting with a shitty pole climb, and then like leading into the tennis match, which didn't obviously go our way, and then like the aliens were like, all right, we're back up, everything's good. And then like we go right into the market, and it's 35 degrees outside. There's a Leafs game, there's a Blue Jays game, and it's like there's people everywhere. You're in this market, you have no idea like where anything is. And wow. Honestly, like I was ready to just like pass out, like just like pull up and be like, I'm good. Like this has been great, but like leave me here.
Do you have any idea of the plate? Like throughout the episode, like on TV, we see the placement. Like, okay, Ty and Kat currently in first. Do you know? I mean, I guess you're kind of crossing paths with different teams through some of the activities or the events. But like when you're driving and stuff, like is there times where you don't really know what place you're in and you're kind of just on an island, or are you pretty sure about that as you go?
Yeah, unless you see another team, like you really don't know where you are. And you could even see another team and still like, you could be like, oh, maybe we're the first two right now, and you could be the bottom two. Like you really don't know, especially a task like that too, where like we needed 5 ingredients and like we saw everyone at the market, but one team could have 1 ingredient while the other could have 5. So you just like never know.
God, that would bother me.
Yeah, that was hard.
That was weird because like she was really good at like keeping me in check, but like I mean I'm distracted all the time, and like I mean we went into Home Sense 2 days ago, and I'm like in a different aisle, just like looking at these like Santa mugs, and like same thing on the race, like it's so easy to get like focused on what another team is doing and like how they're approaching that challenge and like what they're how things are going for them. Whereas like you have to be like so in the zone of like, all right, like it's just us. Like it's almost like you have to make sure that you feel like nobody else is around, and it's just like just you guys competing. Because as soon as you like start getting caught up, and like you saw it in the last episode where she's like, no, like stay with me. So I think that was hard because
Just look at them.
yeah. Same thing, distracted, just like squirrel. But yeah, there was a couple times where it's like we could be in first or we could be in 8th. Like we have no idea.
That's crazy.
Something you said there kind of like ties into one of the questions we actually had for you guys specifically, because we felt like you guys, just building off your comment that like you almost just have to have blinders on and like choose what you're going to do and not worry about everyone else. Like you guys seem to interpret the directions of each challenge or task like really well, like, and that might have been part of Kat's preparation of like watching prior shows and all that stuff, but it just seemed like a lot of other teams made small errors that cost them in big ways, and you guys like blew through these. It was like very noticeable that you guys read it and understood it and like knew what they meant, because I feel like they try to trick you in some ways or like try to like throw you off the scent, so to speak. So was that something that you felt like you were confident in when you read like the challenges?
Yeah, I think we learned like early on. I think there was like something we didn't read clearly at the start, and it had affected us in some way, and obviously not too big. I can't even remember what it was, but we just got in a rhythm of like I pretty much had the clue with me at all times. Like at all times it was in my hand, and like we would reread it to each other. I'd read it to you as you were driving pretty much the whole time we were driving somewhere. And you're just like, your adrenaline's up, you can't really think straight, so it's like you just have to go back to like that sheet of paper all the time. And yeah, I don't know, I think that did come from preparation, but I'm also like very like highly attentive to details, so I think I was like, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right. Like
Yeah. This is probably thank God to Kat. Many of these situations, it's probably just like thank goodness for Kat. But yeah, especially on like the days when you're tired and you don't have a lot of food in your system, and it's like, all right, like how much more do we got? It's so easy to just like read that first part and be like, all right, good, got it, and then like you kind of forget like the important details of it. And there was definitely like so many challenges where it's like if you don't have that detail, then you're screwed.
like
And
in
it's
St. Catharines.
in St. Catharines, like same thing. Like there's so many like the GM plant, like and like building that engine and then realizing you have to disassemble it too. Like there is a simple mistake that like if you don't catch on to it, like you could be there for hours because it's like and you feel like you're doing everything right and you're so caught up in it that you just like don't take the time to like decompress and be like, all right, how do I get through this like step by step? And like yeah, it's so fulfilling and refreshing when it's like, oh, like that's what we have to do.
There's the one. Which team was it? The alien conversation, which I thought was hilarious.
Oh, when they yeah.
They were like assuming that they were saying their home. They didn't realize they had to add in their home, Winnipeg, right? Yeah. And then they were there for, and then they realized, and like it's a perfect example of that.
They did it like 3 times, and we were like,
Every time except for that.
Yeah.
Keisha and I were talking to each other in the alien language after that episode.
Thank God we don't live in an apartment building anymore. Nobody can hear us.
Yeah, absolutely black. Yeah, there's a guy on a lawnmower just screaming out a random language.
Merple Durple.
Yeah. Merple, Purple, Pelham.
Are these weirdos?
Did you guys prep in any way before about like I think Keisha already said, just the way you guys like approach challenges and the way you talk to each other, was that just something that comes within your relationship, or was there a preparation thing there? Because it was so obvious to us, like so many of the teams got to a competition and were like, oh god, like I don't want to do that, like almost like very intimidated and very negative about it. But to us, it was pretty obvious that there was like a lot of optimism and a lot of positivity towards whichever challenge,
Whatever
you
is
know?
happening. Yeah.
Was that something you guys prep for, or is that just sort of like a natural element you guys have?
Honestly, with a lot of them, I think it's just like the way the stars align. Like especially with the detours, like the roadblocks. Like you kind of have to have like a similar amount. Like it can't be just like, all right, Kat, you do every single roadblock. And like even looking back, like I'm glad I got the GM or the one in Smithers where we had to sell the car, and then like I'm glad she got like a bunch of the ones she got. Like it was kind of almost just like the way it worked out. But I think like approaching it, we were just like, all right, like screw it, like we're in this already, like we can't like just go in half-ass it, like it's just like let's just embrace it all, let's just have a lot of fun with it. And like I think analogies really worked for us, like even with the oh yeah, when we were in Whistler Pemberton area and we did the wedding challenge one, and like the analogies that she brought up with like the clock and like setting the table with like this clock, and it's just like I think we just like got it and like we like understood each other. But there's definitely times where you like approach a challenge. One thing we realize is like how important it is to get it on the first go, and like not getting it on the first go, like sometimes it just like sets you right back. And like there was times obviously where we didn't get on the first go, but like even the skydive or like the bungee jump, like then you have to wait in line, and like especially those challenges where you have to wait in line, it's just like oh my god, like it's just like the clock is ticking and like precious time, and like you never really know how much like 10 minutes can really benefit you until you're in a situation like that where people are doing the exact same thing. But if you have that extra time of like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, like it does add so much.
Yeah, and I think that like honestly, I think it surprised me how well we could like do
Yeah.
some things. Like we definitely didn't like prepare. Like I think I don't know, maybe we tried to build a furniture thing. I don't think we like really did anything that was like let's work on our communication and try and do this. Like we were just like
Interesting.
yeah, I was honestly surprised, and I think once we kind of felt it going good, it was just like momentum from there. We're like, oh, we're actually thriving in this atmosphere where we thought we'd be kind of on the opposite end of it, and I think our relationship actually got better throughout it, which is shocking.
Well, that's great, and it kind of makes sense now that you've both elaborated on your personality types too. I think maybe like being a little bit more opposite of one another might actually help you in those situations because we were oh my gosh, we were discussing like, do you think we'd like do okay or like would we absolutely tank? Because we are both like we're very different, but we're also I think we both want to like take control, like or come up with the idea of how to handle a situation. And so we weren't sure.
Who would drive? Who would navigate?
Oh God. He would drive.
Yeah, I would drive.
He would drive, but that's the thing too. Like, I'm not the most trustworthy navigator either. Like, I would have to really focus in. I think that's one thing I would have to really work on if I were to approach this would be like maps because you guys had to use a map sometimes, not your phone, which is like a skill set that our generation is lacking. Like, so yeah, I don't know.
Quick story
Oh God, I already know what you're gonna say.
to describe Keisha's navigation skills. When we got to Switzerland,
Fair.
we went to Bern right around Christmas time just to sightsee and whatever. And we're trying to find our hotel, and the streets are a little bit different there. And she's trying to tell me to get to like the valet loop, and I end up taking a turn, take another turn, and all of a sudden I'm driving down a sidewalk right beside like a Christmas market.
In the Christmas,
like literally in the Christmas market. Everyone's like looking in my window, like what is this guy doing?
We're driving a car with like all of the team logos on the sides because those are the ones they give you. So everyone's like, "Who the heck is that?"
People just drinking their hot wine and like
blue wine.
looking at speaking in a whole nother language. Yeah.
Don't mind me.
in fairness, so I had it on walking directions on my phone, because I didn't have a car. I walked everywhere, so that's what it was set on, like
But yeah, we figured it.
Yeah.
So yeah, to answer your question, I would probably be doing the driving and maybe the navigating too, maybe both.
I would just be there for emotional support.
For what it's worth, I did have to learn how to read a map. I didn't know how to do that.
For what it's worth, you also had to learn. You've done well lately, but she doesn't know her lefts and rights.
Yeah.
so, like I would look at my rear view and she'd be like, left. Or yeah. Just
Like it's something just doesn't compute in my brain when it comes to left and right. It's like I'll be like, yeah, go left, and I fully mean right, and then he'll be like, start going left. I'm like, I said go left, and like I just
yeah.
I don't know what it is.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that would be a problem in a race, I think.
Yeah, that was one thing we were definitely like we got lost in that St. Catharines.
St. Catharines, like I drove us completely to the wrong spot.
Because you were going from Niagara on the Lake to Welland. Is that when you would have?
We were going from the GM plant to Welland, and I
Yeah.
drove us to Niagara on the Lake.
Yeah, that's the opposite way.
Yeah.
And like, this is one thing we also needed to learn is like, especially when you're like, you know, when you're writing down directions, like it's important. We had to understand that like, okay, me being the driver, like I should read these directions too, even though she's gonna navigate and tell me where to go, like, I should still try to like process this and like kind of understand like the big like landmarks. And like when I went back and read it, I was like, oh, Welland, because I was like, Welland has a junior A team, I think, and I was like, oh, because that I was like, I think she was reading, I can't remember what it was, but anyways, like we both read it and then we both got directions, and then it was like the lady's like, I remember we went up and we're like, yeah, how far? And she's like, oh, and like I saw that reaction and I was like, uh-oh. And then it was just silent treatment in the car.
See the pain in your eyes, like you could see the hurt you were going through.
Yeah,
Be a tough moment, like a little bit of time where you're not like you're trying to bite your tongue if someone else makes a mistake. Like I just think it's human, just like habit to want to like amplify someone, like want to amplify the problem when someone else is already like down. You want to like figure it out, or you want to like, but there's almost like no point because it's already happened, right? Especially in this situation. Like, did you guys ever like feel that, or did you ever get into any like bantering matches a bit, or was it pretty good, like pretty easy to just sweep it under the rug and move on?
I think it's like things happen so quickly that like you just like you move on so fast. Like we got really lost in St. Catharines, and you could see how like mad you were, and I felt so bad. But again, like there's nothing you can like really do except keep moving on and accept it. And we learned just how to like take it as it is and like how to better it going forward. Like from that, we learned that you should look at the directions too, and we had way better driving the rest of the legs because we kind of have a system now. Like sometimes you need those little hiccups, similar to like life. I think you need those hiccups to learn from them and then correct it moving forward, and you do better.
Yeah, I think even like to relate that to like the Toronto leg, like as I honestly, I remember I worked that night that it aired, and like I knew I was getting home at like 10 p.m. and I was like, don't worry about me, like you watch it, like go ahead, because I like honestly just like didn't want to watch it because I like knew what was gonna happen, like what was going on. And then we ended up watching it together, and I actually felt like a little bit better. But it's just interesting how you have to like fully put yourself out there to break it down and understand like what your partner needs in that exact moment. And I think like we both kind of got to a place where we knew what each other needed, and especially at that time, like when I was sitting on the ground after the pole climb, like she had to do everything in her power to like try and keep the light and like try and keep the energy up, whereas like I'm on the floor or I'm on this concrete ground dripping in sweat, like I'm like fuck this, like I'm done. And then she's like, no, we're still good, like don't worry about it. Like, and I think there's a certain, you need to keep the faith and like kind of keep that like that hope that like everything's gonna work out. And like I think us going through that in St. Catharines with the navigation, like us going through the hard leg in Toronto right before the finale, like it's weird how things work out. And it's weird how things like how you can build off that, and how it's like, I know this one quote where it's like, once you experience the lows, the highs are just that much better. And I think like we experienced that that low feeling in Toronto of like almost not making it, and then it's like, all right, like that's we don't want to ever feel that way again. Like we just like let's get back to it. And I think that's one thing we had to learn is just like getting back to it and like getting back to like having fun and like getting back to like joking around. Like she tried joking around with me in the car in St. Catharines, and I was having none of it.
No. I think like I mean, you guys are so not lucky, but this is such a translatable experience for you guys to like carry into life and like your future relationship too. It's like for couples who don't have opportunities to really struggle in these ways, like that's when sometimes not so difficult things can have like such a bigger impact. So
Totally.
I feel like this experience only set you guys up for even more success. And it seems like you guys had like it all, figured out even while you were progressing through. So I just want to give like kudos to you guys in your relationship because some of the other contestants were not so gracious or kind. And I mean, I could still relate to them too, though, because I'm like, that would be so frustrating. Like, especially as a competitive person, I know that I would have to try really hard not to snap on Riley or myself. Like, I mean, getting in your own head, I'm sure was half the battle in these challenges too. And like, I mean, we saw that happen with some of your other contestants too. But yeah, so I just wanted to give you guys extra kudos for that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think we learned is like I guess one major takeaway for me from the race, and like something I talk about a little bit in my speaking now, is like how important mindset is. And I think you both are like very like efficient in your like how important like your mindset is, especially with how many changes you guys have had in your lives lately. But it's so true. Like I think we went through a couple things that makes you realize that like as soon as you start to get down on yourself and as soon as you start to shit on yourself, like that's when things start to go even worse. And I think like putting yourself out there and like reworking and like shifting around your thinking of like, all right, like we're still good, like everything happens for a reason, like just like trust the process, keep the faith. And I think that's something that I really took away, was how important it was to like I'll be the first one to tell you like it's not all rainbows and butterflies and all that, but like kind of getting back to that place of all right, we're good, like we're still get to do this, like we're still above, like we're good. And I think that's something that, at least on the mindset side of things, I found to be very valuable looking back, and I probably could have utilized it a little bit more, but yeah.
Yeah. I liked how some of the teams that lost, just like their ending few lines there, like just talking about how good of an opportunity it was. I'm sure during the race it's hard to separate like the end goal and the end prize money and everything that comes with winning. Like I'm sure it's hard to not think about that while you're racing. I don't know if like I just couldn't imagine being one of those groups. And you guys like for the Toronto leg, like did you find yourself like thinking like, oh man, like we're gonna lose out on this, and maybe that distracting you a bit, or because I feel like maybe some of the other contestants sort of had that creep in where it was like, oh god, we did this all for nothing. But I mean, the opportunity that came from it seemed to be a pretty sweet one.
Well,
Yeah, I think there was. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's hard to recall the Toronto leg, especially just because we were so exhausted and like so tired, and like just like you almost like you want it to be over, but you want to keep going. And like that was like we're watching Special Forces like World's Toughest Test right now, and I literally looked at Kat and I was like, I could not do that shit. But it's true. Like honestly, once you're in that position and once you're in that place, it's almost like nothing else, or like you're just like so zoned in and you're so focused on it, and like it kind of goes back to just like being present. And like for us not going through this experience with your phone and like never really knowing what's going on outside the world, like I think that in some ways really was an added bonus, because it's like all of your thoughts are the race, which is also a detriment sometimes because you're only thinking about the race. But it's important to like find the silver linings in it, and find like even for the Toronto like the we could look back and be like, well, you know what, we crushed that alien challenge, and like that was a lot of fun. And like for a while, honestly, at the market, like we had no idea if we were still in it. Like we honestly, like there was a moment where it was like, okay, we saw another team, perfect, but like other than that, like we were like, this could be it. Like, and I think it's just like looking back and be like, wow, like
Yeah.
like it just like it can slip away that quick. And yeah,
I think that was like our biggest growth day too. We hadn't really been at the back of the pack before, and then similar to life too. I think you don't really like when life's going good and things are all jolly. You're not learning. You're still learning stuff, but like you're not really going through a lot and growing. And when life gets shitty is when you're really tested and like have to persevere and you have no other choice. And I think in Toronto when we were at the back of the pack, we said we're like we have nothing to lose at this point. We know like we just had a penalty. We waited. We're like let's have fun with it. We could be going home, but let's say we left it all out there and have fun with it. And then as soon as we kind of switched our attitude there and we're like, let's just have fun with this. Like we got nothing to lose. That's when we saw success again. So it's like, it's really funny when your mind can like play tricks on you that way. And as soon as we flip the script and we're like, hey, whatever, nothing to lose. Let's just go in for it. Like that's when we saw the most success, I think, at any point in the race.
Ty, how hard was it to play tennis after that pole climb?
The best part is like I've had so many people heckle me about my tennis skills, and like I'm honestly not a bad tennis player. Like I'm really not. But I'm more of a pickleball guy, and maybe that played a factor. Back to our first original icebreaker question. My old person tendency is how much I love pickleball. But anyways, the tennis thing, I think it was more demoralizing because you kind of knew what was going on, and like we experienced a face-off in Victorian Souk with like the military tent challenge, and the face-off is like a really neat challenge because it's just you and another team where you know either other teams are waiting or you know that you're gonna have to wait out a time penalty. So I think there's like an added pressure to it. And we went into that, like, I don't know if you remember, I like walked into the tennis. I was like, whoa, yeah, that's good. Roger Federer.
Yes, they added us like cracking up.
And at that point, I was like, okay, like I almost have to we almost have to make our own energy here because it was so tense in there. Like Devin and Amanda just came off their loss against Ben and Amware, so it was like, all right, we know this is gonna be tough, but like I think we were both spent, and I was still sweating from the pole climb, and like I don't think I honestly stopped sweating that whole day, so it was just like hard to get comfortable, and it was hard to just like, okay, as much as our mindset can change and we can like get into this, like I mean, if your body's starting to break down, it's just like it is hard to keep that up, and I think that little time penalty after tennis sucked. But then once again, I mean, like hopping in that cab and just being like, you never know what's going to happen. And I think, once we got to the Alien Challenge and we saw that every other team was there, we're like, oh shit, like we're still in this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kat, did you have any specific events that like stuck out to you as being? I'm trying to think. Like, I honestly feel like
Paddleboarding.
Yeah, the paddleboarding was really tough for me. It was so windy that day, and I paddleboard at my cabin, but paddleboarding on the ocean versus a lake is like very different. And I thought I was gonna kill it, and I just struggled a lot. The current was so bad; it was exhausting. That was like one of the most exhausted times in my life. I don't think I've ever been that exhausted before, but that happened a lot throughout the race. And then I think you're nervous the whole time. I was in a heightened state of, I have anxiety to begin with, anxiety the whole time, but at the same time, I almost felt like I was overcoming it at a way faster pace because you're just forced to go do it. There's so many times at home when I'm here where I'm okay, I don't know, I'm feeling a little anxious today. Maybe this isn't the best. And those days I just I didn't have a choice. I just had to do it. And then I felt so much better at the end of those days. So I learned a lot about myself and my approach to things in that way. But yeah, all of it was just wild.
I got two stories. Okay, paddleboarding, it was funny because watching from above, it was oh shit, this current is heavy. And it's funny because Kayleen understands the ocean and she's super she sails, does everything. So she understands the current, understands waves. And I remember Kat got on the board and starts paddling and she's moving backwards. And I'm okay, that's not good. And after she got in the water and started swimming, and then it was okay, so then she got back up on the board, and I, honestly, from looking above, I'm just I don't know what the answer is. It was just so hard to watch because you can't. It's a helpless feeling of okay, I want to jump in the water and just take on this challenge myself, but we're we're already so far into it, and like for her to paddle back, me to get in my like swimsuit, go out there is just like hard to fathom how much time you're gonna lose. And then like to speak on Kat's performance, I did a speech in Elora, Ontario, just outside of Guelph last week actually, and I kid you not, this lady comes up to me. She sits front row for my whole speech, and like honestly felt good. Like it was a really good speech, and she comes right up to me and she goes, "The only reason that you won is because of Kat." And I was like, I was like, yeah, like she's a superstar. And then she's like, no, like I'm serious. And then she's like, just like kept dead stare. And then like one of her friends like asked her, she's like, "Do you want a picture?" And she's like, "No," and then just walked away. I was like, oh my
She
God.
is
What the heck?
the head
I was
of
like,
Kat's fan club.
I was like, don't get me wrong. I know, like, Kat was amazing, but I was like, wow. That was like the most indirect slap in the face.
It is so funny though.
That's insane.
She was a team effort for sure.
Well, you were.
So crazy she comes to your speech where you're like
Yeah.
promoting such a good message and like trying to build people up, and then she just
Yanks you down.
I think I didn't understand her humor, maybe, but it was just like funny the way she went about it. And she was like the first person I talked to after my speech, and I was like, wow, is that how everybody feels?
That's hilarious. Gosh. Well, kind of going back to what you said, Kat, about how like the anxiety piece and like when you go do something and then like how good it feels. It must have been a good feeling when the day was done and you just had a rough day, but it didn't go as bad as you thought. Maybe you didn't finish last, obviously, or you did way better than you thought. Like that has to be a good feeling once you can kind of take a load off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think honestly, I think like even if we had finished last to like be able to say that we did that and we gave it our all, like I think that would have been a good enough reward for us. But it's also like, again, you don't really have distractions, and then transitioning back to real life when we came back and getting my phone again and being kind of like in this whole real reality thing again, that was a bit of a struggle, and still is, because you're so used to just having this one thing and everything you can propel and you can compete, and I thrive when I'm competing, and then coming back to real life after and being like, okay, that was just the race. Like now you actually got to put this into practice in real life. That was a interesting experience too.
It's so true. Like I talked to Keisha about this. Like it's hard for me to actually like do something. Like say we have like chores or we have like stuff to do around the house.
If we have chores. Continue.
But like to actually like take action and do things and start checking things off your task list or whatever. Like it's hard. Like when you can just go look on your phone or go like look at the new houses in the area for sale, or like all things that I do, like just to pass time and like act like I'm doing things. But then when you actually go do some stuff and you start checking these boxes,
one thing at a time,
you get energy.
Yeah.
But it's just like your brain tries to fool you so bad.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a good transferable skill that you learn, where you can like, it's like a little bit of an eye opener. Like, okay, when you have a purpose, when you have something to do, you can put your mind towards, that's when you get energy.
Yeah. And just the value of truly doing one thing at a time. I think like we are all kind of programmed to be like productivity driven, and it's like I have trouble even like finishing one task before I realize there's another one, and I'm like all over the place. And it's like you can get things accomplished way quicker, way better, way more efficiently if you just do one thing at a time. So for you guys, the race was like your one thing at a time. So then coming back and then being inundated with like having to connect with other people, work, friends, life. Like I'm sure that was like, you're probably like, ugh, like can I go back to one thing?
Back on the race.
Yeah, can
and all while like keeping the secret too.
yeah, we even talked about that.
I honestly, after hearing both of you, I think we should spend a week together, because it's Riley and I are literally the exact same, and then I think Keith and Kat are literally the exact same. I have such a hard time here, and like I have all my shit, everything I need to do in life in my like reminders thing, and like I'll set a reminder for like 10 a.m. book flights to Toronto. and like, because I have this speech in Ridgetown in January, I didn't get to the task till 7 p.m. tonight, or whatever it was. Like, it's just like I have the same thing where it's like, okay, well, I could bug Kat right now, and like I could joke around, and like I could go watch my favorite YouTubers or like shit like that. It's just like so hard to actually like take it and like actually own it and do it. Whereas like the race like afforded us the opportunity to like embrace it just like one piece at a time. And it's like you aren't able to look ahead and you aren't able to look towards the like what's next. So it's like you're so solely focused on what's at hand and like what's in front of you. And then like that was the cool part of it. It's just like it was just like step by step, and it's just like piece by piece. And like it's like, okay, that leg's down. Now we move on to the next leg, and then we'll just like start at the start of the leg, and then we'll figure out as we go. Like that was
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe all of us kind of share a little bit of like when there's structure to our day, you just like feel like it's better shape for you. And I think like this is the first time I thought about this, but the race was so structured, and our day was completely planned for us. We didn't have to. Like, yes, we're in the heat of it. We don't know what we're doing, but there's still a structure to it. And I think, especially as athletes, even when you stop playing a sport and you lose that structure or something that you've had your whole life, you're like, oh my God, like, what is life? And like, it's a huge learning experience. And I think we just had a little bit of a dose of that when we came back too, because it was like relearning that.
Yeah, for sure. Like once the day is done and you could just kind of take the load off, what does that look like on the race? Like once your commitments are done, what did you guys do? Like, you just go sleep, or do you just like sleep and eat and just rest up?
Yeah, honestly, every time just like looked different, and like same thing. Like, I mean, I think we can both speak to how, first off, like how incredible the other teams were. It's not like obviously you were able to get so much time with them, but like even just like the time we had, even just like at the Smithers Airport, or like in certain times where you could talk and you could express your stories and like talk more. And then, like, to touch on that, even, like, the crew and the production, like, that was something that I think we both really enjoyed, is, like, be a part of a large-scale production and, like, see how – and it's a well-oiled machine. And, like, everybody that we were with on the race was just incredible and, like, such good humans. But, yeah, I mean, every day was just, like, it could be like the keep on racing leg where, we're in Niagara on the Lake and now we're going to Windsor, or you go sleep or you go eat. Like it kind of just looks, it just like looks different every time.
But we spent a lot of time together.
A lot. Like we have a couple inside jokes that will make zero sense to anybody who is ever around us. But like every time we say it, we burst into tears. Like there is just like so many things where it's like it's just you, and like I mean, if you don't pick, that's our biggest piece of advice for anybody that like wants to do this, and like we would recommend it to everybody. But like you gotta pick the right partner, and like you gotta be ready to be with that person and like have a lot of fun with that person, have downtime with that person, play crib with that person, crosswords with that person, like be on train rides, flights with that person, like everything. And I think that was
Would you want to fly with me that many times in a short amount of time?
I think we would be okay. As long as,
I have
as long as we don't have, this sounds bad, as long as we don't have, flying with a child, that just makes things amazing. They should do Amazing Race with a toddler.
They should do that.
Amazing Race Parent Edition.
Yeah, that would be wild.
Yeah, one backpack, one child.
That would be crazy.
Get their child to eat their whole meal the quickest.
Imagine climbing that pole tie with a baby Bjorn on, and you have a baby.
Yeah. Just 70 more feet, buddy. Just 70 more feet. We're good.
Yeah, sneezing on you, coughing.
Yeah.
That sounds like a horrible idea.
Oh my god.
Do you guys have was there a favorite leg or like a favorite episode?
Or even a moment that maybe wasn't aired that like you guys were like, oh, like I thought that would have made it.
I think
for me it was Tofino when we were doing the challenge to go get kelp, and we got so much kelp.
Yeah.
But we were going to get kelp, and like we just like took a second, and like we're on this boat in Tofino, and I'd never been there. I'd always wanted to go there, and just like I forgot we were racing. Like just took a second, like looked around, and like, oh my goodness, like this is so beautiful, and just like so lucky to be here. And I felt like I was like in another world for a little bit there. Like it was just the craziest thing. It was so beautiful.
I think that was like the neat part too, was each leg brought like its own set of challenges, but also like perspective. And like even Smithers, British Columbia, like I never thought I would find myself in Smithers, British Columbia, but like it was beautiful. And like I mean, every single person that like we encountered were super helpful and like wanted to be there. And I mean, even it was hard because they teased me with golf courses, and they brought us to Big Sky, and it's like one of my bucket list golf courses in Canada. And then we're in Niagara on the Lake at another golf course, and I remember like looking at one person, I was like, "Can I just like play?"
While I wait.
Yeah, I mean Halifax, I think really does have a special place in our hearts, just because it all finished there, and it all obviously went our way there. But I think I loved Halifax already, and I was really excited to go. But like actually doing that and finishing in Halifax was, it was so much fun, and it was just like when I was on that Sea-Doo, I was like, okay, let's just do this.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I still get like I think about that day and just so many things that could have happened, and it's like still mind blowing to me that it worked out the way it did.
That's how it's supposed to be.
Do you have one event? I'm calling them events. Is that fair? Is that would you call them event? One challenge. One challenge that sticks out, like for each of you, that like you walked away from. You're like, yeah, I crushed that. Like, and I think I know which one you're gonna say, because I was like, holy shit, if they don't win this race, Ty's gonna be a car salesman. Like I was ready to buy that. I was searching.
Yeah.
Aside from local real estate, I was searching up trucks for sale.
I was gonna say two. Number one being me selling the car, and then the number two would be the alien challenge. I fully embodied myself as an alien.
Yeah.
I was laughing so hard when you walked out of the spaceship, and you were like,
Whoa. Yeah.
I had to look down a couple times in the alien one, so I was gonna start laughing because you were so in character.
That's amazing though.
Kat, what about you?
No, just like to touch on the alien challenge one more time. It was funny because like the first couple, Kat couldn't get it, and then like there were a couple after I couldn't get it, and then it was funny because it was just like I was just like ready to do it. I was like, all right, we'll go again. Like I'm good with that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think mine was the wine challenge.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a good one.
I was surprised myself with that one actually, and then I think also maybe the wind turbine. I felt pretty good about that one, but
Yeah, the wind turbine was.
it was just the math one. But wine for me was as soon as I was shocked.
The helicopter one was cool.
Yeah, I was shocked we got the wine one first try, but then I was like, of course we did. I love my wine.
Yeah. Wait, that helicopter one, we were like, oh, she just did that like first try. Like we were like, what? That looked so hard.
It honestly was really hard. I had so much adrenaline like pumping, but I just remember thinking like, if the two boys are gonna get it, I'm getting it. Like there's no way that I'm gonna be the little girl that doesn't get this. Like I was like, I'm taking the boys today.
I love that.
I think an early one that caught me was when you walked down the building, like facing, like, looking down at the ground, and you didn't like.
You're just like, oh,
you did, yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, you just were like, all right.
What did you tell yourself?
Oh yeah, trust the rope.
Trust the rope.
I like kept repeating it. Just trust the rope. But that was so scary. That was the first day of racing, so like you have no idea what you're doing yet, or like how it works. And it was honestly probably better it was the first day of racing because I couldn't think in general, so I couldn't really think when I was going down the wall.
And then there were a couple like the one where you scaled the rock face, and then you had to figure out the puzzle. And then there was another one that involved some sort of, it might have been the wind turbine one, or just like the way like your problem solving and like the way you mapped out the question or whatever they were asking for you in like a more strategic way than just trying to like let it all go in your head or whatever. We both were like, wow, that's actually a really good way of.
Well, you made the
that.
challenge work for you, you didn't try to like adapt to the challenge. And I think like some teams that were struggling obviously were like taking it so literally, where you guys just kind of molded it into whatever skill set you already had, and that was pretty noticeable.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think like the finale, the reading one, we kind of decided like,
oh yeah,
we decided we're like, let's sort the books out beforehand instead of listening where teams went and listened first, and then we kind of had that was like, and it's kind of funny because like I feel like personally I had kind of gotten better at that as with each leg, like you just learn as you go. And then by the end of it, I was like, okay, I'm in a rhythm now. like I can keep doing this. And I was like, it's the last leg though. Like, but as with anything with practice, you get better. And I think we started to get pretty strong near the end there.
You were mad when you got to the final mat. You were like, I want to keep racing.
You turn the corner, realize you won, and you're like, no.
More challenging.
Let's talk about that, and then I feel like we can maybe wrap up. I want to know like when you guys realized that you won, because what we saw as viewers was like, everyone's there waiting for you. Everyone's like, they're showing all of them, but they're not showing who's coming around the corner. Like, did you guys turn the corner and see that the mat was empty, or could you see from farther? Like, when was the moment when you were like, oh my God, we freaking won?
It was interesting because we knew Tyler and Kayleen, especially on the crossword, were like right behind us, and we're like, like right there. And of course we get into the car with Eddie, and there's like construction, and like Halifax downtown is like one-way roads. So like we were caught behind. And so my initial thought was like, oh shit, like we're going to lose this race because of construction right now. And then I think like once we started to like get moving, and then once we started running, like from a far distance, I mean, obviously everybody was cheering for every team that came in. But I think once we saw that the mat was empty, then it was just like, oh my gosh, like we actually like did this. And like I remember Kat was just like, hold my hand tighter, because it was just like there were so many emotions, like our adrenaline, we were so tired, and like it was just like we gotta get to this mat. And like that last run felt so long, but like wow.
I remember looking at my hair and being like, why didn't you tell me to fix my hair?
She legitimately got mad at me after, because she's like, look at my hair. And I'm like, you think I give a shit? I'm like, we just won the Amazing Race Canada. I'm not going to look at your hair and be like, Kat, fix that right there. You got a hair sticking
out? Beauty standards just embedded in us, hey?
So funny.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I think it was, we turned, we couldn't see everyone the whole run, and then eventually we got close enough where like you turned and we saw the empty mat and everyone, and it just, I completely broke down.
Yeah, it was honestly just like, because the race is long and like the race is hard, but it also like, it goes so quickly, and there's so many things that you can like look back on, and there's so many challenges you did, and so many things that you saw and did and all that. And I think in that moment, it's just like, how do you even like digest what's going on? Like, it was just like, and especially to see all the other teams too, I think really brought a lot of like life into us, and like brought so much like, brought so much joy that like we got to do this with all of these amazing individuals. And I think that was like, it was a blur. Like it was honestly like that last leg. I remember it very vividly, but also at the same time, it was just like, it was a blur, because it was just like, go, go, go. Like you don't care about anything else. Like, it's just like, you have to do this. And like, I think there were so many things that, once again, the stars really did align. And like, I think we can be grateful that we got to experience this journey, but also grateful that, we just trusted it, and like we just like had a lot of fun with it, and like we just like tried to make as many memories as possible, like even in the midst of challenges, even in the midst of like, driving from one place to the other, like kind of just trying to keep it light as much as we could.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm just like trying to think of my biggest takeaway of this whole conversation, and I think it's just like putting effort into being present, really, because like we talked about how it's so much easier to focus on one thing, but you can do that so much better when you just kind of like focus on being present. And I think that's kind of been a theme of how you guys are describing your success that ultimately led you to winning the Amazing Race Canada, which I'm sure still sounds weird when you say it sometimes. It's like one of those things where you're going to like keep absorbing it as time goes on, I'm sure, because it's such a cool accomplishment.
What was the What was the after party like? Do you get
Yeah.
to celebrate or?
Yeah, that's a great question.
It was
Or were they just like, okay, go home?
it was fun.
It was a lot of fun. But yeah, I think we definitely learned a lot, and like that's like it's interesting because even we were talking about earlier about like people having the opportunities to like do stuff like this, or people having the opportunity to like get out, and I kind of bring it back to our conversation with like Joe Hawley. And like how he was like constantly, creating or growing your brain and growing your mind is constantly about getting outside your comfort zone, being spontaneous, challenging yourself. And I think that's like something that we really embraced was like how much this is just like, all right, like this is really challenging us. And like, this is really putting us outside of our comfort zone. And like, it's so true. Like, I think we both just felt like we grew and like felt like we learned a lot. We went through a lot. It was a crazy journey, but like I think we both can just constantly look back and be like, we did this. We had a lot of fun with it, but there's a lot of things that we can look back and like take away of like we need to keep like implementing that into our lives, and like we need to keep going places. We need to keep putting our outside of our comfort zone. Like we need to keep having conversation. Even like some of the conversations we have with strangers. It was like that. Like, when you're so removed and you're like not constantly, ordering coffee in the morning or whatever it is, like it's interesting once you have that dialogue with a stranger, and it's just like frick, like people are amazing, like people are good, and like that's one thing as well. It's just like getting back to that of like let's be simple, let's take steps, but like let's also like push ourselves and like let's grow, and yeah.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like as more time goes on, it's crazy for me because all my memories from that time are so clear, and like I can bring myself back to every situation pretty much. And my regular life, I can't do that. And I think about it's because I was so present in every moment. I didn't have my phone, and like I was really forced to be present in the experience. And like it's crazy the way I like think of those memories versus like my everyday memories, because it's just so clear, like the moments to me, and it's just from being present.
I'll give my closing thoughts. But I think for you too, obviously we've pumped your tires a lot.
Keep doing it.
But it is just like a really good. It's like really eye opening, and I think for other people to like see, and other people that watch, if other people listen, like the importance of obviously having a partner who supports you, but also like even amongst your friend group or your family, whatever it is, like you don't have to know everything about everything. And I think like you guys did a great job. Like at one point, Kat, you saved the day, and then the next point, Ty saved the day, and you don't have to be an expert at everything, and that's what makes a team win, right? And I think that's just like another transferable skill, and an important message is that like you surround yourself with good people, people that you can lean on, and also like you work together to get through this life. And it worked for you guys in the Amazing Race, and I think it was just a good example of how that works. So props to you guys. And then I'm done. Pumping your tires.
No, it's over.
Well, thank you both. To our listeners, we're going to be doing. We're done talking about ourselves.
We're doing the same thing.
We're gonna switch it around, hopefully, and we'll be able to pull a lot more information out of Quiche, because I'm learning a lot more through our conversation right now that Riley doesn't tell me. But yes, we will. We would love to do this again, and we would love to be able to, keep the conversation going, because we know that you have a lot of things going on in your life, and I know Kat is, super intrigued to ask a couple questions to Quiche about, just a lot of things.
The new podcast. We should plug the new podcast.
Plug it.
Delivered_pod on Instagram.
Delivered pod.
You can just give a quick little blurb.
Well, I was so inspired by Rye and Ty that I was like, I want a podcast. No, I just after like becoming pregnant again, I realized how much listening to other people's birth stories really helped me prepare for my first birth with Slater, just from like going from zero knowledge to the knowledge I gained from my own experience. Like you're never prepared, but listening to other women's stories and just how things don't go according to plan, but then you have your baby. Like it's just another lesson in, having a plan but no expectations, which kind of the whole time you guys were talking, I was like, this like aligns with what I'm saying too. Like so it's just a little collection of like women's stories, and it's just a mini series for now, but it's been really fun to do. So
There's so much power in a story and so much power in relatability. So we love that. All right. Well, hey,
Thank you guys.
we did it.
That was fun.
It was so much
thanks,
fun.
guys.
Next time in person.